It's Wednesday, April 20th, 2022. Good morning. I'm Andy Johnson. Welcome to it. This is AM Prime on this Wednesday morning. Here's what we're talking about this morning. In the second hour, we'll be talking with the local government councillor in Cedras, Shankar Tilak Singh. We're continuing a discussion about developments, physical and otherwise, in that part of the country. It's the discussion we began one day last week. We come back to that. Of course, we will share with you the numbers for COVID-19. We take a look at what's in the Newsday Trinidad and Tobago and the Newsday Tobago. We take you around the region this morning. We stop in St. Lucia for a connection between Trinidad and Tobago and something happening in St. Lucia at the moment. We're also talking with Ms. Rebecca Govaya. She's back with us talking about child abuse in the context of two deaths recently of young children one was a teenager, to be exact, in situations in which they were being flogged by their parents. We know those stories as they emerged, and it created a whole new set of discussions about disciplining children and flogging in those circumstances. We get to that. We have the Newsday poll as well, the question and the responses, the COVID-19 numbers, like I said. But right now with us, Dr. Stephen Shepherd. He's the CEO of the Trinidad and Tobago Hotel and Tourism Institute. He's based in Tobago. And the conversation has to do with transport between Trinidad and Tobago. He wrote a letter which was carried in the Newsday one day last week. The headline was, "Ferry is a necessity." He was responding to somebody who was addressing that issue. He's agreed to talk to us. What struck me about what he was saying here, he says that he sometimes has to use transport of one kind or another between Tobago and Trinidad twice a week. And he says sometimes it's more than that. And there's a lot in this pot that needs to be stirred. Dr. Shepherd, good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning, sir.
Good to have you. Well, let's start talking about it. You say hundreds and possibly thousands of people like me who use the ferry service at least twice a week for purposes of work or business. To us, that ferry service is like a highway between Port of Spain and Scarborough, for which we pay a toll fee. Unlike him, you're talking about somebody here who uses all the highways and overpasses in Trinidad for free. Let's start with that. Talk about some of the challenges that people have been talking about.
I'd ask about before. Let me correct one thing. It's not the Trinidad and Tobago Hospitality and Tourism Institute.
Yes.
It's the Tobago Hospitality and Tourism Institute.
Okay, right. The T stands for Tobago. Okay, the Tobago Hospitality and Tourism Institute, right.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Right, yeah, so the key is transportation, sea transportation between Tobago and Trinidad. And as I said in that letter, at present, the service is excellent. There are no issues with it. I take it twice a week, sometimes 4 times a week. It all depends. There's a fee that you pay, and when I travel with my vehicle, so there's a fee that you pay. The point I made is the writer was arguing that he took a mid-semester break, suggesting to me that's once per year, or once, maybe twice a year. People use it literally every day. This is no exaggeration. I use it twice a week, 3 times, 4 times a week. But there are people whose life depend on it. And as I said, that ferry is pretty much like a highway between Port of Spain and Trinidad. You know, like the Florida Turnpike, you pay a toll fee.
Yes.
In this case, we pay a toll. We don't mind paying a toll. But we can't pay for the highway every single day, which is what he's asking.
Yeah, and this is Mr. Kendall Karen, who's asking the government to reduce the subsidy on the ferry. And that is not on. That is not a possibility. It cannot happen.
No, right now the ferry is subsidized 50%. I'm not sure if you're aware of that.
No, I'm not familiar with the terms.
Okay, so I'll tell you. Between 2009 to 2017, for example, the expenditure on the ferry service was $1 billion. The revenue was $545 million. So the subsidy is actually under 50%. Yeah, that information is there. It's in a joint select committee report that was laid in 2016 in Parliament for public consumption.
Right. And you say that you agree with him that the service is efficient, it's reliable, it's punctual, it's first class. Yes, the vessels are in immaculate condition, and the service from checking in, waiting on the port, parking your vehicle on the ferry, and on-board service are all just fantastic. And I wish to implore the operators of the service to maintain those standards. In a lot of cases, this is unique because a lot of public facilities in the country, we lament the condition and the state of affairs with them.
Yes, we lament, but when it's good, we hardly ever say it's good. And this is one situation I would like to commend the government, the Port Authority, NEDCO, those who operate it, for maintaining so far an excellent service. I want to repeat again, it's excellent. And let us keep it that way. That is how everything in Trinidad and Tobago should be.
Yeah.
As I said, there are two issues on the port in Trinidad. The area where you park to wait to check in, it's rough and bumpy. There's some potholes. They have made some attempts over the last couple of years to fix it. Still not good enough. And on board, when I'm on board, I do work, and others try to do work. But there are a couple of areas where there's no cell phone coverage and no data. So if they could arrange with Giselle and TSTT and whoever to have a good onboard service like you have in the aircraft, people don't mind paying for 4 hours a reasonable fee, and you have good internet service on board. That's the only request there.
Okay. Can you describe for us a little bit what it means to have to be moving between these points? You say sometimes up to 4 times a week, so you go and come. You know.
It's no different to driving between San Fernando and Port of Spain. It's actually easier than driving between San Fernando and Port of Spain. It's not an issue really. You jump in your vehicle, you go to the port, check in, go on board, sit, read, do whatever you have to do, drive off and go do your work. It's really not an issue.
Yeah. People who can't figure out that, because we think you have to cross the waters to go to Tobago.
Yes, you do.
And that there are obstacles and that there are inconveniences with it. You're saying that there's none.
I cannot think of any. I used the ferry up to Sunday afternoon. There were no inconveniences. I boarded, sat, I worked, came home, and did continue doing what I had to do. There were no issues really.
Yeah. And so the question, Mr. What's his name here? Mr. Karen was advocating the removal of the subsidy. You're saying that is madness. You can't do that.
Well, I wouldn't call it madness. I understand where he's coming from. He's thinking that the government doesn't have that much money right now, and he is driven by the reduction of the subsidies from at the gas pump, right? At the same time, if you do that, what you'll immediately have is a very serious impact on the quality of life or the cost of living to people in Tobago and Trinidad. Okay? Now, he based his theory on having used the ferry once, and he paid $50.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's fine. And we encourage others to use it and pay $50. But if you remove the subsidy, you will immediately increase the price of goods and services in Tobago and further increase the disparity in the cost of living between both islands.
Yeah. And so one gets the feeling that it is so many times easier using the ferry than taking the air bridge.
I prefer to use the ferry primarily. Well, it's easier. It's much easier to get a ticket. The air bridge, typically 8 flights per day. The air bridge, I cannot carry my vehicle. The air bridge, there are many things I transport weekly in my vehicle that I can't on the airline. Because the airline, of course, the safety, as a passenger, the safety requirements are different. To me, it's also much safer from a social distancing point of view. When I sit in a corner on the ferry, I am well away from everybody else. Even if it's 100%, it's still safer.
Yeah. And you say, are you so being facetious when you say, well, perhaps the government should start charging people for using the Churchill Roosevelt Highway because it is now more efficient than before?
Yeah, that was tongue-in-cheek, but it's not implausible. Okay, so in Trinidad, I live in Taka River, and I could get to Port of Spain in 15 minutes. Previously, we were taking an hour, 2 hours. So why not? If one day the government may want to build a toll highway, for example, east-west or north-south, why not? It's done all over the world.
Yeah.
Jamaica has a toll highway. Florida has toll highways, and New York State has toll highways, so why not?
I knew a former Panamanian ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago. I was on vacation there one time and we hooked up and he was driving me along a roadway along part of the seaway in Panama City, and he said that he tried to convince the authorities here while he was here at the time. His name is Gerardo Maloney. And he tried to convince the authorities here that it would have been a good thing to put something like that between Port of Spain and Chaguaramas. And he didn't know why that idea wasn't pursued and is not being pursued.
Well, it's possible between Port of Spain and Chaguaramas, it's pretty much a bottleneck. So if, for example, you can have a public-private partnership to build a causeway, it will cost a couple $1 billion, and maybe you could have a tool for about 20, 30 years to recover the capital cost, and then it's no cost to it. That's a way of financing public infrastructure. It's possible, just think about it.
Yeah, in the same way.
Just do.
Yes, in the same way we could talk about the proposed travel from Toco to Scarborough.
Yeah, well, the travel from Toco to Scarborough, if you're using the ferry, will be much shorter. However, it will take you much longer to get from Toco to Port of Spain.
Yeah.
Now, think of the person in Tobago who is leaving Tobago at 6:30 in the morning on the ferry to get to Port of Spain. You'll need to be on the port by, let's say, 5 o'clock, right, in Scarborough. Yeah. It takes you probably half hour to get to Toco, then another 2 hours to get to Port of Spain. So it's 9 o'clock, and maybe around the same time you'd have gotten if the ferry had gone to Port of Spain. Think in the afternoon though, you're trying to get back to Tobago, the ferry leaves Toco at 4 or 5. It will take you 3 or almost 4 hours to get from Port of Spain to Toco, because that Port of Spain to, let's say, Arima leg could take you an hour, then another hour and a half, 2 hours to head to Toco. In addition to the additional costs and the amount of ground transport infrastructure has to be in place to transport probably 1,000 people or maybe 500 people. Think of the logistics and it may not work out. I'm thinking though, if you use the Galleons Passage between Tobago and Toco and use the other bigger ferries between Port of Spain and Scarborough, it may be feasible, but the economics and the logistics have to be worked out.
And I'm giving somebody who has some measure of familiarity with moving between these points for some time. It's not a project that you would be fist thumping about at this point. You're not, right?
No, well, it has to be carefully thought out. The road between, let's say, Sangre Grande and Toco has to be made much more efficient. It's pretty much like the roads in Tobago because of the nature of the terrain, lots of corners, hills, and so on. And at the time when those roads were designed by the British, I'm not sure if you're aware, the surveyors got paid by the miles. So therefore, at that time, they took every opportunity to make the roads longer. And they make the roads longer by having more corners. But there are places in the world where the road does not go around every corner. It goes over valleys, it goes through mountains. So between Sangre Grande and Toco, it's possible to have an almost straight road. Not necessarily straight, maybe long curves, but not the sharp curves, the many uphills and downhills that you now have. That will cost quite a lot of money.
Yes.
But it's not impossible.
But it's not even being discussed as far as you know anywhere. But it's interesting because I have a relative, well, he lives in Houston, Texas, and he covers that territory to some extent, very widely. And he once said that he was here sometime, and another one of my uncles was taking him up to Toco, and he said that it is possible to not have to go around all these corners to get from Sangre Grande to Toco.
Yeah. Very possible. If you're driving, let's say you're driving from Turin to Milan, for example, Turin to Genoa, you will see that the road goes over, there are many, many bridges, goes through the mountains, many tunnels. But that is extremely expensive, but it's possible.
Yeah. All right. So I want to switch a little bit and ask you about there was a comment in the paper by the chairman of the Tobago Chamber some weeks ago. I think I mentioned it to you, Mr. George, who said that he was lamenting the level of professionalism by people who work in the hospitality industry in Tobago. And he's saying that they need, I'm not sure it's better training or better attitudes and approaches to the job they do, because that's lacking in a society that is, well, for all intents and purposes, in a lot of people's imaginations, hospitality driven. What's your response to that?
Yes, so that is actually documented. If you go to, there's a Joint Select Committee 2016 under the administration of the THA, you'll see it's documented there that there is some level of poor, at that time, hasn't improved substantially, poor customer service at hotels in Tobago. I'm quoting from the report now.
Yes.
Poor customer service offered at hotels, relatively poor standard of customer service. The THA rated the customer service provided at hotels on the island as generally poor. The rating is based on feedback from surveys conducted throughout Tobago. The committee inquired about the impact the poor standard of service has had on the industry and whether anything was done to address the matter. And Tobago is struggling to compete with other tourism destinations because of the poor quality of customer service as one of the issues. So yeah, it's there. You can't hide from it.
And so is that a challenge? That adds to the challenge of the responsibility you have as CEO of this institution?
Yeah, it is. And I'm the person who will not see something and allow it to sit. So what I did in conjunction with Mr. Louis Lewis, who is the CEO of the Tobago Tourism Agency, in 2018, we initiated this project to address exactly that issue identified in the Joint Select Committee report. So he thought that we need to have a global partner in improving the quality of customer service in Tobago. Now, he wanted Tobago to be known as an island, a tourism destination that provides fantastic service. So we developed an RFP, issued it to 4 global trainers. This company from Singapore won, and we started the work. There were some delays. I'm sure COVID was part of the delay, but we started work on it in August last year, and it's going really well. The first training will start next week, actually with my institute, because as you say, charity begins at home.
Yes.
So what's the best place to start? I can't be training people, and my institute still will have a couple of issues. So what we did, we trained 23 persons so far as workshop leaders. And those persons will train the institutions. And we're going to train not just hotels and restaurants, as you may think, but every single touch point of any person. This is not a tourism project. This is a Trinidad and Tobago project, starting in Tobago. So you come to Tobago from Trinidad, Mr. Johnson, you pass through the airport, you'll meet security. If you're coming internationally, you'll meet immigration and customs and so on. The police, taxi drivers, you go to the beach, you'll meet people there. You go to a gas station, to a grocery, to a corner store, to a parlor, a tour guide, every single person, every single touch point. We estimate about 12,000 people over 3 years to be trained.
Yeah. How do you inculcate an attitude and a culture of hospitality? What are the things you have to instill in your charges?
Well, one of the things you need to let's say educate people, or the message you have to get to them is that there's a huge difference between service and subservience. Because of our history, and I'm talking about our colonial and slave history, there is a subconscious thinking that if I serve you, I am almost becoming like a slave. But if you go to other countries, you'll see your service is extremely good. And service makes a difference. And service, there's literally no cost to providing good service. But service makes a customer come back. And that's what we need, people to come back all the time. So there are pockets of excellent service in Tobago, don't get me wrong. Yeah. There's a place called Castari, you must have heard the name. that people have been coming back for 20 and more years. When they leave, they book for next year, immediately. There are some excellent areas. In Trinidad, there are some excellent service providers. Recently, I went to have my ID card renewed at the Bonnier Center with the people who renew the ID cards.
Yes.
There was some waiting time, but I must commend them publicly. The service was excellent. They even had music, right? And the staff were not like public service staff. I heard people comment on it. They were excellent. So we have excellent. There are companies in Trinidad that provide excellent service. I won't call their names, but there are pockets of excellence. We just want everyone to be like that.
But wouldn't calling their names sort of serve as an example?
Well,
you don't want to give them free advertising.
I wear glasses, all right?
Yeah.
You asked me, so I wear glasses, and I get my glasses from Ferro Optical.
Yes.
Ferro Optical's customer service is excellent, and that's just one. I mean, the risk is singling one out, and somebody could say me too.
Yes.
But I know I use Ferro Optical as an example, and their service is excellent.
But one would think that given the fact that Tobago has always been in a lot of our minds, a hospitality-driven place, that it wouldn't be an issue for people working in that very environment in Tobago to learn how to do it and to come to the job with a sense of sort of that is inbuilt in their natures and in their approaches.
Yeah, one would think so, but the reality is different. And to do almost anything excellent, you require training. So people think, yeah, Tobago is a nice, hospitable place, and Tobagonians are extremely nice, extremely hospitable. But there are some elements of service that you will not know unless you are exposed to it, unless you are trained. I mean, one of my master's degrees is customer service management.
Yes.
And almost everywhere in Trinidad and Tobago's public and the private sector, I can point out many, many issues that need correcting. Right? And customer service is not about smiling and saying good morning. That is just a superficial aspect of it. Customer service is much deeper. It starts on customer service systems. And once your systems are in place, that will support your frontline people. Then the fundamentals of excellent customer service is there.
So,
right? But if your systems are not in place, it doesn't matter how much smiling and good morning and welcome and how can I help you, you will not get good customer service.
Yeah, we have to go, but the sense I'm getting is that that is a core part of what you try to deliver at the institute.
It's a core part. Every student is trained in customer service. While they're there, they practice it. For example, when things are normal, close to the end of semesters for about 5 or 6 weeks, we have student dinners on Wednesday night. 5-course meal, absolutely world-class for far less than you'll expect. And I implore the students, when you leave here, please maintain the quality that you're displaying. But sometimes they leave and they go into an environment where the standards are not as high, and then they fall back.
Yeah.
But yes, we infuse customer service in everything that we do at the Tobago Hospitality and Tourism Institute.
All right, Dr. Shepherd, we have to leave it there, unfortunately. Dr. Stephen Shepherd, CEO of the Tobago Hotel and Tourism Institute. Thank you very much for talking with us.
Yeah, you're welcome, sir.
All right, and you're going to head off now?
Head off now to the beach.
Yeah. Okay, all right, good.
Okay, take care.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
We will take a break, and when we come back, we tell you what the numbers are with COVID-19 in our midst on this day, and we look at the Newsday poll, the question and the responses. Stay with us. This is AM Prime on this Wednesday morning.
I love it when a company understands me and I can get support when I need it most. Accessing an eye care professional online is priceless, and that's why I choose Ferreira Optical Virtual Care. The convenience of a virtual visit fits my lifestyle perfectly because they connect with me wherever I am. Don't believe me? Then try it for yourself. Just log on to www.ferreiraoptical.com and choose your virtual care. You'll thank me later.
Change your fate! Start to win at life! with $20,000 every month. Win $20,000 every month for 20 years with NLCB's newest game, Win for Life. 6 numbers from 28 plus the cash ball could make you win for life. You deserve a win. Play Win for Life today. Visit NLCBGames.com for details. Players must be 18 years and over. Please play responsibly.
Today we're talking about cosmetic medicine, and we're on set at Relax Med Aesthetics.
We are like famous all over the world for this glow. You could in an airport, you could spot a Caribbean woman.
Yeah.
Oh my God, she's from Trinidad.
She's definitely from Trinidad.
Yeah. So I felt like that was something that we needed to feel like we belonged, and we needed to feel empowered that our skin color was really important.
Step we've been waiting for is the chemical peel, right? So I'm gonna start applying.
What's up, Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
We have been apart for a long time. Now let's get together once again. Let's welcome you back. Family. North Coast Jazz 2022, May 27th to 29th. Born here, played here.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
It may seem like the hardest thing to do right now, but we all need each other to wear a mask, wash our hands, watch our physical distance, and stay at home. We need you safe. Together we can make the difference. Together we can curb the spread of COVID-19. So let's be responsible in our actions. The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
A reminder from WESN. We urge you to protect yourself and others from the spread of COVID-19. Stay safe by taking some simple precautions. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand rub. Maintain a safe distance from anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Wear a mask. Don't touch your eyes, nose or mouth. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay at home. If you have a fever, cough and difficulty breathing, seek medical attention. Following the above can help us all to help each other.
Welcome back to the program. In moments from now, we'll be talking with the return here of Ms. Rebecca Ali Govile. She's the founder and executive director of the Elpis Center, and her associate, Dr. Nancy Coppola, youth development specialist, talking with us, from someplace in New Jersey in the U.S. about the issue of child abuse as it continues to show its face in Trinidad and Tobago. All right, let's take a look at the numbers with COVID-19 in our midst on this morning. 20th of April 2022. These numbers compiled yesterday in the 19th. 132,554, the total recovered patients. 6,154, the total active positive cases. The death toll thus far, 3,806. 142,514. That's the total positive cases reported in the country since we began the counting on March 12, 2020 to yesterday. 92, that's the number of new positive cases reported in the last 24 hours. And 145, that's the total number of persons in hospital in what is called the parallel healthcare system dealing with COVID-19. So that's how it looks on this morning. Let's switch now to the Newsday poll, and the question is, what are your thoughts on fuel price hike protests and calls for a boycott by taxi drivers on the first day of school? That was yesterday. Well, here are some responses. After a set of mouth on social media, the majority of the population didn't come out to support. We like it so. Another response is, I love it and stand with them. Also, I think it's wasting time because no matter what, Shorty's still raising gas prices. And the final response there, people like to talk and don't walk the talk. I said, rara, this country will continue to deteriorate if this continues. So those are the responses to the question. What are your thoughts on fuel price hike protests and the call for a boycott by taxi drivers on the first day of school yesterday? Well, the responses have to do with the response to that call and to those calls. So right now, let's get to the issue. In the last couple of days, in the last week or so, there have been at least 2 incidents in which children died as a result of floggings from their parents in one case or the other. And that brings us back to the question of child abuse. And it is something that the people we're introducing now or reintroducing to the discussion here on AM Prime wanted to talk about. It's part of what they do for professional, well, I would say advancement for the society in Trinidad and Tobago. Dr. Nancy Coppola, she's a youth development counselor and professional. She's talking with us from a place in New Jersey in the US. And Rebecca Govaya, the founder and executive director of the Elpis Center. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning. Good morning again, Mr. Johnson. Thank you for having us.
It's good to see you again. So let's start where we ended, at least in our conversations, when you saw the story about the teenager who died in these circumstances after getting a flogging from her father, and there was another case subsequent to that in which there was a death, after a beating by a parent.
Mm-hmm. The 7-year-old boy.
Yes.
Yeah. So both of those incidents are tragic and preventable. And so, what I wanted us to talk about a bit is, these advents of adverse childhood experiences and how, because the last time we spoke, Andy, we were talking about domestic violence, in the family and how it's impacting our society here in Trinidad and Tobago. And one of the things we spoke about is that violence does not just occur overnight. It doesn't go from 0 to 100 overnight. There is usually a build-up to a violent exposure to violence and perpetrating violence and becoming victims of violence. And the whole onset of adverse childhood experiences sets our children up for a lifetime of issues as adults. And perhaps for the benefit of the listenership, I should define what adverse childhood experiences are.
Yeah.
And these are essentially traumatic experiences in childhood and teenage years that put our children at risk for violence, for chronic health problems, mental illness and mental health issues, and even substance abuse in adulthood. And just to give us an idea as to what figures we're looking at, apart from the fact that it's a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar cost in the US for dealing with the consequences of ACEs, I can give you a couple more statistics in that over 60 or 1 in 6 adults have experienced 4 or more adverse childhood experiences. 44% of adults who battle with depression could be avoided, or we could avoid, put it another way, we could avoid about 44% of adult depression if we prevent adverse childhood events. And 5 out of the 10 leading causes of death are associated with adverse childhood experiences, according to the Center for Disease Control based on their research. And not to mention, we spoke about risk behavior, the first episode we were on with you, and we spoke about risk behavior and teens' exposure and engagement in risk behavior. Well, adverse childhood experiences increases risky behavior, such as heavy smoking, heavy drinking, violence, etc.
They increase the possibility that young people would get into those activities because of what you describe as adverse disciplinary.
Well, adverse childhood experiences,
right.
and just to clarify further, this can be violence, it can be abuse, neglect, it can be a child witnessing violence in the home, so not experiencing it personally, but being a witness, a first-hand witness of it, either in their home or their community. We're talking about having a family member die by suicide or even attempt suicide. And even a child's environment, which is very important and we don't talk enough about, a child's environment can undermine three things: safety, stability, and bonding with their biological parents.
What do you mean when you say that, when you refer to a child's environment? You mean the circumstances,
substance use, issues in the home environment. So things like substance use, mental health problems, that maybe a parent or someone in the home is experiencing, instability, parental separation or divorce, household members being in prison or jail. So all of these are factors in a child's environment that can lead to the onset of these are traumatic experiences that can then lead to the onset of these lifetime issues we're talking about. So, I want to hand over to Dr. Capola so she can share a little bit about, when we talk about teens and helping them to or disrupt that pathway towards violence and abuse and mental health issues and poor relationship choices.
All right. So just as you come in, Dr. Kubler, I want to ask you to respond to the notion that I'm getting that sometimes it sounds as though parents have to be perfect in order to raise children properly.
So I don't think parents need to be perfect, but one thing that I do want to comment on based on what Rebecca said is we know that when children are exposed to these ACEs, these adverse childhood experiences, they are more likely to become abusive as adults, both towards their partners and towards their future children. And so it is really critical in those developing years when children are young and through their teen years that we ensure that they grow up in safe environments. If we look at what the Search Institute tells us, the Search Institute has done a lot of research on these developmental assets and what allows someone to become a healthy, well-balanced, physically healthy and emotionally healthy adult. And they talk about two separate tracks of events. One is the relationships that children are engaged in and the opportunities that they are exposed to. And that produces for them what we call the external assets. The other half of that is social emotional strengths that children are allowed to build throughout their young childhood and into their teen years. And those become the internal assets. The external assets really focus on four things. What is the family support? What is the neighborhood support? What is the community church and other school supports that the child experiences? Empowerment is the second piece of those external assets, and that are what are the values that are instilled in children and how safe do these children feel growing up? Next are boundaries and expectations. And when we talk about boundaries and expectations, we're focusing on three things: family set boundaries, community set boundaries, and the role models that children are exposed to. And finally, the last piece of the external assets that we talk about is this sense of, do children have a constructive use of time that is monitored, mentored, and safe for them? Those four pieces together form the external assets that really reduce the exposure to ACEs, because children then will have a place to go to find trusted adults should the home environment not be safe. If the home environment is safe and there are issues outside in neighborhoods, communities, or schools, then the children can go to the parents. So when we talk about these developmental assets, there are 40 assets that really build physical, emotional, and social health. But we don't need to have all 40, we just need a balance. So in terms of the internal assets, what we're really looking at is, does the child have a commitment to learning? Do they have positive values exposed to them in terms of understanding equality and social justice, importantly? And then are there social competencies that are modeled for them? Do they know how to adjust to the cultures and the various environments that they are exposed to? And then finally, what are we doing to build self-esteem? What are we doing to build a sense of purpose? And what are we doing to build future orientation? And that is critical to the child's success. When we build those assets, then we decrease the chances of alcohol, tobacco, and domestic violence. Alcohol, tobacco, and drug use, domestic violence, and we decrease the chance for future abuse and violence as adults.
So what makes for a safe environment for children to grow up in? And what are the chances? What is the likelihood that even in the best of circumstances, young people will grow up in ways that they weren't taught or they weren't shepherded?
So I think the difference is ensuring that there is discipline in the home, that there is discipline in the school, and that there is a sense of instilling values across communities. But discipline is very, very distinct and different from floggings, right? We can discipline a child by setting boundaries for them, by having rules and expectations, without ever crossing that line into using physical or corporal punishment to instill those values and rules.
Yeah, so you outlaw flogging. Flogging should not exist at all. Should not happen at all.
There are so many studies that show the detrimental consequences of flogging, and there is nothing to show that it has any benefit in changing behavior of children.
Yeah. All right, because let's come back to you a little bit, Rebecca, because the first case of the two we're talking about here is that, well, this is not, we can't litigate the matter here, but this is some of the facts that are present in the situation. The parents say that, at least the mother was saying that they were trying to grow up their children in certain ways, introducing them to church and not necessarily religion, but doing the right thing, and that once the father had cause to spank this child, and he didn't like himself for it. But against the best of their efforts, the child was going in a direction, checking out boys, and in a situation which they thought it was not accepted. And the father was asked to discipline her, and well, things got out of hand. So this is a case in which they thought that they were trying their best with this young lady. She wasn't taking the coaching, as people would say, and well, it ended up in the way that it did. So what may have been happening there?
So, I don't have all the facts of the family situations, but they are just from what's been in the press, there are definitely some ACEs that existed there, right? So we talk about, parental instability. So research shows that children not growing up in an intact home with two biological parents that are safe and nurturing is a source of adverse childhood experience. There may have been other things in the background here that we don't know about. The dad, as Dr. Capola said, that type of flogging is absolutely unnecessary. And this child's death was entirely preventable. As desperate as the parents felt for a solution, that type of flogging was not the solution, Mr. Johnson. And, at some point, and as a matter of fact, when it comes to preventing ACEs, we have to talk about how we've normalized violence in our society. and whether this is, are we really serious about wanting to address violence in our society or not? And if we are, then we have to embark on public education campaigns that help our parents to do things differently, to employ different strategies that can help our children. I don't doubt that these parents were concerned for their daughter's future, but were they disciplining out of their own triggers and their own experiences? And this is the thing. ACEs go down from generation to generation. And unless we disrupt the transferring of these ACEs, it's going to keep happening.
Now, how do we do that?
And, we ought not to just rush. Sorry?
How do we disrupt?
Okay, so five, I can just give 5 very quick strategies to prevent ACEs because they are preventable.
Yeah.
2 things. 1, they are preventable. And 2, if a community acts quickly, if the community around the child acts quickly to intervene and to address the consequence of those ACEs, it actually can go a long way to reducing the harmful impact of it. So you made a comment about whether we want perfect parents. No, we're not in an ideal world. No one is perfect. Parents make mistakes. I'm a parent of 4 children. Dr. Coppola is a parent to adults and a grandmother. We're not talking about perfection here. We're talking about doing things better to and remove violence from the home, remove dysfunction from the home and do better. But 5 quick strategies. We need as a community to strengthen economic support for our families. Families throughout Trinidad and Tobago are under financial strain and there are not adequate support systems to mitigate that economic strain. We need to do public education campaigns to discuss violence and to change our attitudes about violence in the home and corporal punishment. We need to talk about bystander behavior. There are people who stand by, but it's a psychological concept, right? Bystander, you watch someone experiencing violence and you do nothing to intervene. We need to address that. We need to bring in our boys and our men and even mothers as allies in violence prevention. There's research, Andy, that shows that mothers to very young children tend to be the biggest source of abuse than men to young children.
Yeah, I'm going to get at that. The point you make about what we have to bring in to encourage bystanders, stop being bystanders. We have been told in the last couple of decades, if you see something, say something. But sometimes that is easier said than done. I mean, everything is easier said than done, but there are all kinds of reasons why people don't want to get in other people's business. Sometimes, you intervene and then the people get back together or they resolve the issues and then they hold it against you for getting involved. And in some cases, we get involved and we take sides one to the other, and that gets transmuted. And
I think every time we take a stand against violence, we're doing the right thing, regardless as to how it's perceived after, regardless as to who comes at you after. Every time we take a stand against violence, it's the right thing, especially violence against our children. We need to be able to ensure a strong start for our children. These are proven preventable strategies. Long ago, they used to do home visits when children were born and in the early stages of their development. I'm told by nurses now that program has stopped. We are not teaching our children skills. Dr. Coppola and I talk a lot about risk avoidance. The child in question who is engaging in behaviors that the parents felt would have been to her detriment.
Yeah.
There are other ways, healthy ways, affirming ways, empowering ways to teach that young lady and other teens how to make healthy choices to reach their full potential.
Yeah, Dr. Coppola, we just have a couple of minutes left. I'd like to get you on. So you say you would outlaw flogging in Trinidad and Tobago context, and whether that leaves the question of discipline in the society where you have these kinds of things happening. People. I'm not sure what you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think there are a few ways to look at this. And the first is, what do we put in place now to ensure that future generations know how to better work to discipline their children without going to these extreme measures? And that, as Rebecca talked about, is important to start at a very young age. It is about making sure that they have the developmental assets to be in an emotional place where they can act out of a healthy spot instead of out of aggression. There is a difference between assertive parenting and aggressive parenting. And as Rebecca said, if we were not in this situation where the parents felt that they were at a loss as to how to address this issue with their child, we need to empower the child, we need to empower the parent. So I think that now we work with young children to build a healthier future generation. And then in terms of this generation, how do we help the parents of that child to not get to the point where they feel so disempowered to control their child's behavior, to help their child down a healthy path, that they have to resort to violence. And the way that we do that is by having better parenting education, by ensuring that we have community support systems so that when parents feel that they have an issue, there is a place for them to turn. If these parents felt that there were counseling services available for them to go to with their child or to send their child to, the outcome would have been very different. And as Rebecca said, these issues, these instances are totally preventable. What we need to do is we need to act as a community. There is a saying that it takes a village to raise a child, and that is true. And I think that as we drift away from community support and people move more into isolation and families are isolated, they feel the stress, the financial stress, the emotional stress, the stress of physical illness, the stress of everyday life compounds and then comes out when that child is being disciplined.
Okay, we're running out of time, but I just wanted to say that we're running out of time. I just wanted to say that it's interesting you raised the question of what it takes a village, because I was in a discussion with a lady who raised 2 boys some years ago. Both of them are adult now, and we were in a conversation a couple of nights ago, and she said that she wouldn't trust that at all, the question of what it takes a village, because she's not sure what sort of parenting skills other people in the village have, and she didn't want to take a chance on allowing them in the lives of raising her children. But
right, and that's why
the village can provide other supports, right?
Yeah.
Economic support, relief for toxic stress. You can support the parent without trying to parent the parent's child.
Yeah.
Right, and I think no one should ever usurp the parent's authority to parent their own child. We should never usurp that authority. What we need to do is empower the parents to be the best parents they can.
We're gonna have to leave it there for now. Again, thank you both very much, Dr. Nancy Coppola and Rebecca Ali Kovar. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Have a great day.
All right, you too. So we will take a break. We have news in seconds from now. We continue on the other side with our discussion with Mr. Shankar Tilak Singh in Cedrus. So development matters there that he has on his agenda. Stay with us, and it should be in ours as well.
Seven is out. All day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
In this season, we talk more about health, wellness, and everything in between. I am so excited to share with you everything about health and wellness so that you can design the life that you've always dreamed of. Join me here on What's Up Doc.
What's Up Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Burning questions, urgent topics. Welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
A reminder from WESN. We urge you to protect yourself and others from the spread of COVID-19. Stay safe by taking some simple precautions. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand rub. Maintain a safe distance from anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Wear a mask. Don't touch your eyes, nose or mouth. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay at home. If you have a fever, cough and difficulty breathing, seek medical attention. Following the above can help us all to help each other.
Welcome back to the program. Well, up ahead we'll be talking with local government councillor Shankar Tilaksingh in Cedros about some development issues he's prosecuting there. But before we get to that, let's take a quick look around the region. And we're going to St. Lucia, where the business development leader of Trinidad and Tobago's own Heritage Petroleum was speaking to DBS Television about those outside of the energy sector, activities economically for people outside of the energy sector in St. Lucia. Let's take a look at that.
From business development leader James Walker's vantage point, what's really driving Guyana's economy now is oil development. But he says that's not the only contributor as Guyana tries to avoid becoming a one-product economy. In terms of diversification, that country is also developing infrastructure, tourism, and manufacturing, among others, thus creating a host of economic opportunities.
That said, that's not the only thing that's
that's exciting about Guyana now, because what Guyana will want to do, and they've said that they would want to do, it would be to ensure that they're not becoming a one product economy. So Guyana wants to ensure that this economy, I would say, continues to be, I suppose, diverse. So they're building out infrastructure, tourism, for manufacturing. They'll diversify their electricity mix. They will, invest in the health and education sectors as well. So there are a lot of other economic opportunities in other sectors in Guyana besides just, deep water oil development.
He believes that St. Lucia stands to benefit immensely by partnering with Guyana. For one thing, taking into consideration all the tourist amenities Guyana contains, St. Lucia could share its expertise in providing a world-class tourist destination. There could also be cooperation in agriculture, given Guyana's vast land space.
I think that's where a country like St. Lucia, and I would argue even Trinidad, should be looking to partner. So what are the things that Guyana needs now in that drive for diversification? St. Lucia has a lot of capabilities, experience in developing a world-class tourism product. And Guyana has, fantastic waterfalls and forests and rivers and, lots of things that they could attract tourists with, but they don't necessarily have the capabilities. So what is it that St. Lucia could look to offer in that regard, in that competency and capability? And then certainly there'll be other aspects, but collaboration in agriculture, for example, could be one. They have huge land, huge land mass that they could leverage going forward to feed the Caribbean. I think that potential has always been there, but now that they have the money to build the road that will connect the area, or build the better river services and build the deep water port, build the container handling facilities. Once those things are in place, then you quickly open up agriculture.
Mr. James thinks the focus should not only be on oil, but on all the other assets available. For the DBS News World, I am Don Nicholas.
All right, so with us now, local government councillor Shankar Tilak Singh is talking about, he has a list program for development issues in that part of the country, in Cedros. He'll share some of that with us. Good morning, sir. Good to see you again. It's always good to see you.
Good morning. Good morning to your listeners. How are you this morning?
Well, very good. How are you?
I'm fine. Way down in the last end of the Southwest Peninsula, trying to see how best we could assist in whatever way that we could develop the Southwest Peninsula in terms of our local development and so on.
All right, and you have some things on the schedule. You have some things as initiatives that you're going forward with, and more you want to go forward with. Let's talk about some of them.
Sure. Right. So we have the economic development plan, and one of the areas for development is the agricultural sector. That sector has been dormant since after 2015 by the then Ministry of Agriculture. There is no real development for partnership with the large landowners in terms of producing food for the nation. I have lobbied and have a number of initiatives in that area for land development for agricultural purposes. However, the challenges for our farmers today is the availability of land space from an access from the State Land and Ministry of Agriculture. Legally, so they need legal tenure, for so that they can approach agencies such as the Agricultural Development Bank and other agencies to assist in terms of producing agricultural products for the country. So that's one of the challenges. But the major challenge facing within the agricultural sector right now is the fisheries area, where our fishermen, some of them are actually packing up their boats and looking for social grants to maintain their family. After the closure of Petrotrin, a number of our fishermen were, a number of our, fireys, I would say, turned to the sea and invest whatever little they had in terms of purchasing vessels to try to go back into the fishing industry. Today, what they are facing is extremely high gas price, high engine costs of maintenance, increase in material price for the repairs of boat. So the cost for actually a small fisherman now to actually try to go at sea to make a catch, it's almost on a daily basis. He has to put out close to around $1,200 in terms of these products or equipment that he has to use to be safe at sea. And that's only one challenge. You have another challenge in terms of security, where the fishermen actually are facing challenges in terms of pirates within the Gulf, with no source of security from the various.
From the Coast Guard and so on. Hello? Okay, let's see. We take a break and see if we can sort this out. Apparently, we're having some connection, some connectivity issues. Okay, so I can see you again. We were having some connectivity issues there. You the hearing? Okay. You unmute your mic because I'm seeing you. I imagine you hearing me, but I'm seeing you speaking, but not hearing you.
Yeah. Okay. Are you hearing me now?
Yes, very well. So I wanted to ask you. You said that I wanted to clarify that when somebody puts out to sea in this situation, you said they have to start with $1,200 a day. That's to get the boat out there. $1,200. It is required every time you go out, and that's every.
Correct. That's correct, because gas price they has to actually go further out at sea, which there is actually two what we call those I think is 10 gallons pan.
Yes.
That actually costs, two of that cost close to around about $800-900, and also in terms of the labor, in terms of getting a stealer, and also other apparels for fishing.
Yeah, and you say there still continues to be issues involving well, it's not the Guardia Nacional anymore. You say it's pirates on the waters, and that is still a major problem for people there.
Correct. The fishermen, areas that are very well, they have to go further out, so it is more dangerous now in terms of security. Most of them, sometime when they drop the net, when time to retrieve it, the net is no more, or after retrieving, they approach and they catch actually is being taken away from them together with the equipment. Some of them actually have to abandon their boat. Recently, we had to rescue a couple of them from the Solado Rock area, where the piracy was, where the pirates actually strike. So it is a challenge. In addition to that, when they do go out further, and there is incident with our local Coast Guard that was reported and so on, where they were, brutally treated and so on. So that on all, it's a deterrence from some of the fishermen who legally try to make an honest day's work.
So why would the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard personnel be hostile to Trinidad and Tobago fishermen in the waters where they should be, if they're in Trinidad and Tobago waters?
Andy, I cannot answer that question. I leave that answer for the Minister of National Security and the Prime Minister, which is the head of the National Security Council, to answer to the public honestly, because we have exhausted our effort in terms of having that approach or that courtesy in terms of our law-abiding citizens who actually risk their lives to go at sea to provide a product for this nation, and is treated with total disrespect from the Ministry of National Security. Another one, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was asking, who are they, to the extent that they can be identified in terms of ethnicity and nationality and so on. Who are the pirates in the main? Is it?
Well, we are not too certain who are the pirates, because if we knew, at least the authorities would have acted. But it's something that our borders are porous, and we have the situation both from the Venezuelan mainland, where there are these pirates come from, and we also have local. Recently, I think we had some breakthrough with a couple of cases from the Caribe area come down to the Chatham, also at the Bonas area. So those are the areas that are being affected, and definitely some sort of assistance from the TTPS, which we had some initial discussion at our community meetings. The then Commissioner of Police indicated that the police marine unit, when that announcement was made in terms of the formation, we welcomed that idea that some sort of assistance would be given to our fishermen at sea.
You mean the previous Commissioner of Police, Gary Griffith?
Yeah, previous Commissioner of Police, Gary Griffith. However, that initiative, I'm not too sure if it's under this Commissioner of Police or this Minister of National Security to activate, but it's something urgently needed to assist in terms of our fishermen security.
So it's never got going?
Not at this time. We haven't seen anything in the Southwest Peninsula. I'm not too sure if anything has happened in North Trinidad. However, that marine unit was existing way back in the early 80s, 90s, and was disbanded under the Manning administration. And the necessary facilities were built to accommodate that under the Pandey administration at CEDRAS, which is the CEDRAS Security Complex. However, it was never materialized. And when we heard the Commissioner of Police, ex-Commissioner of Police Gary Griffith, came out with this suggestion to reactivate same, it was welcomed by our fishermen.
But it suffered a stillbirth.
Say again, you broke up.
It suffered a stillbirth. It never got. It never got going.
Correct.
Yeah.
So again, the area of facilities for fishermen in recent time, the past Minister of Agriculture broke down and demolished the fishing complex in Icacos, which was needed urgent repairs, and the fishermen had a sense of hope then for the rebuilding of same. However, all the ministry did is to fence round the property and leave it just as an empty plot. So there is no facilities there for the fishermen in terms of securing the catch whenever they come to shore. So that is a disadvantage, because in times of when there are plenty, they could secure the catch and fetch a better price when we have facilities to accommodate that sort of storage and so on. In the other areas of Fullerton and Bonas, similar conditions are there, where there is no maintenance and repairs done timely for in these facilities. So the fishermen are again left at a disadvantage when they have to use their resources to have second-hand storage for catch to continue to produce, which they continue to produce for the nation.
All right, so let's understand something. So there's a national security complex in CEDRAS that involves customs and immigration and so on. But what you're saying is that there is not a sufficiency of with national security, certainly protective services that should be part of that? Servicing that complex.
The complex was designed to have all arms of national security, which is TTPS, Customs, Immigration, also the Ministry of Health has an area they to utilize to have proper port development, and also there's room for the Marine Police Unit.
Yes.
There is a jetty and so on, and it was well oiled for that sort of port of entry, with all arms of the state being active in that security complex. However, it have been deteriorating over the years, and no sort of repairs in terms of the pier, the jetty itself. We continue to extend our courtesy from the regional corporation in terms of the toilet facilities and so on when required. At presently, however, we are also cash strapped, to extend those services to these agencies who has high budget allocation that is not being accessed to assist in terms of these repairs and development.
Maybe, I'm taking a gamble here in saying that in a lot of respects, you are a local government councillor. From that sort of enclave in the country, it is a great sense that you seem to have a higher profile in terms of advocating for the people there than the Member of Parliament for that area, whoever that is, over a long period of time.
I have joined local government, or I have before local government. I always been part of NGOs and so on, lobbying for services for my community, and I normally discuss this with our community members in terms of what is needed and how we can. It is our responsibility to set the foundation in this time for our younger ones to have a better community, a more proactive way in terms of the resources that is available to our community. And it has always been a challenge under this administration for development of rural communities such as mine. So I don't sit in the Siparia Regional Corporation and just seek for the repairs of a box drain or even patching roads. I try my best from my office to extend both from local agencies, the business community, and also international agencies. As you have seen recently, I've lobbied and successfully had a medical contingency from the United States Embassy providing medical care for the people not only in the Cedros district, but throughout the Trinidad and Tobago, in terms of eye surgery and other clinics that they had at our community level. Today, I am extending an extra hand through the India High Commission from the India High Commissioner to assist in terms of a Huse Museum and Creative Arts Center. Just on Sunday coming, they had give us a gift of a Gandhi statue for the electoral district of Cedros, and that will be unveiled on Sunday coming. So you are quite correct. I have not just sit in my office as a councillor and see that our fishermen continue to suffer, our farmers continue to be at a disadvantage. The infrastructure of the development of the Southwest Peninsula, which is ripe for the development for local tourism and international tourism, is just continue to be dormant. I am lobbying with various business partners for the establishment of small hotels and bread and breakfast service, so that we could start, encouraging our community to be self-sustained from this economic crisis that we are in at this point in time. Yeah. So those are some of the initiatives in terms of our in agriculture, which we are ripe for and urgently need a heavy investment to save our country from this thing. However, it is a great challenge for us that to get the people who have the resources, which is the Ministry of Agriculture and also the government of the day, for the investment in terms of those accommodation that we need, or the infrastructure that is needed for development of our agricultural sector and our fishing industry.
All right, Councillor Shankar Tilak Singh, we're going to leave it there. But thank you very much for bringing us and the country up to date on these developments in that enclave in the bottom of the country, one of the southern tips of the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me, and all the best.
All
God
right,
bless.
We will continue to talk about these issues, but I think I watched this feature before we go. Let's take a look at it. All right. Well, the time we have done. Let me just then quickly go through the Newsday and the papers this morning. The front page of the Newsday Trinidad and Tobago. It's all about back to school. You see excitement and nerves as school reopened this morning after more than 2 years. And it's the same thing with the Newsday Tobago, except that they were talking about bumper crowds in Tobago for Easter. It's always a big time there. They have this thing I talked yesterday. The only part of the world where we have something called Easter Tuesday, which is like a public holiday. It's in Tobago, and they go to Boko and do goat racing and so on. But just for today, let me just show you the front page of the Express. That picture you're seeing there, it's back to school, but it's back to school at my primary school, Santa Flora EC in Los Bajo, in Deep South Trinidad and Tobago. The principal, Selby Wilson, welcoming students as they play on the stuff there. And that's what it looks like today. And that's where we leave you. That's our broadcast for this morning. We want to thank you for watching. We want to thank all our guests. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. News at the top of the hour, followed by today's edition of Talking Point with Shah and Small.